Bad Juju is a weapon we have not looked at in a very long time, at least in PvP. We covered it once in PvE, right after Lightfall launched with our Star Juju Hunter build, but the last time we brought up Bad Juju into PvP was 11 months ago, when we compared its performance to that of Outbreak Perfected, after Lightweight Pulses got a buff. Now, Bad Juju has always been considered kind of underwhelming after its launch due to the state of lightweight pulses at the time. But after they got buffed, this made a lot of lightweights a lot more forgiving. Now, even though Bad Juju was in a better spot, it was still never really talked about that much. A lot of players actually noted that the weapon's recoil felt off. And to be honest, when I look back on it, yeah, something was off about it. And I can't believe I didn't think that maybe that was a bug. I just assumed it was by design. A lot of people noted that it felt unnatural, like its odd recoil pattern didn't fit its archetype. It turns out that was actually the case. In patch 7.1.0, alongside the launch of Season of the Deep, Bungie included a patch addressing a bug with Bad Juju's recoil, stating that they fixed an issue that was causing the weapon to recoil like an auto rifle, making it harder to control. Apparently, Bad Juju always had this issue with its recoil pattern and was never meant to have this recoil pattern as a pulse rifle. And this has been going on since its release in 2019, which explains why the weapon felt a little off for us and why I still preferred other pulse rifles. Now, for those that don't know, Bad Juju is a 450 round per minute pulse, the same as a typical lightweight frame. In its exotic perk, we have String of Curses, which states that kills refill the magazine and increases the damage for a short duration. This also grants super energy based on the strength of String of Curses and fires in full auto, which, by the way, Bungie, can you change that? Like, I know that was like a big thing back in the day. Everybody's like, oh, it fires in full auto. And now we just have an accessibility change that allows every weapon to be fired in full auto. And Bungie has actually changed like full auto on certain weapons, but I don't know if they're actually gonna change this on Bad Juju. But normally when they actually remove full auto from a weapon, they add something pretty juicy. Take no time to explain. Essentially though, what Bad Juju is a super energy generator, which is great if you can get kills. String of Curses is definitely up there alongside some of the stronger perks for exotic primaries. And the super energy it gives isn't anything crazy, but it's enough to make a pretty decent difference as long as you're getting consistent final blows. And especially when it comes to supers that have very long cooldowns, Bad Juju can help you here. And considering when you use those supers in 6v6, a lot of times, or at least for myself, I just expect I won't get a super until well into the match, if not toward the end, unless I'm just absolutely slaying out. But with the Juju though, you're able to get those supers much earlier than you could before. Most of the time, if you're running something like Spectral or Hammers with Bad Juju, you'll get your super around the same time as people start to get their lower cooldown supers like Well or Bubble. And while getting higher cooldown supers faster is cool and all, if you really want to be a menace to your lobby, you can use Bad Juju with something like Well or Bubble to get your super even earlier. And if you're popping off, yeah guys, you can get multiple supers per game. Now the damage buff is pretty good here, giving a 12% buff at 1 stack of String of Curses, 20% at 2 stacks, 32% at 3 stacks, 40% at 4 stacks, and if you're able to get all the way up to 5 stacks, you get a whopping 52%. Now, once activated, it lasts for 3.5 seconds. And if you have the catalyst, it gives an extra 1.5 seconds. Now, the biggest thing with this is that its damage buff helps makes your kills more forgiving. Lightweight pulses have decent time to kill values, but they require nearly all precision shots at high resilience values. With even a single stack of String of Curses procced, you'll be able to secure follow-ups a lot more than you would have otherwise. Now, flash the exotic perk aside, let's talk about the gun stat package and its other perks. Starting with the big one. With the help of Hammerforge, Bad Juju comes with a range stat of 40. Now, while this isn't exactly awful, and you do have String of Curses mitigating that damage fall off, it is definitely noticeable in comparison to other lightweights. Outbreak has a range stat of 64, easily beating out Bad Juju. Bad Juju is also outclassed in range by the new craftable lightweight Chattering Bone, which can roll with perks like Accurate Rounds and Rangefinder or Keep Away. Bad Juju is kind of plagued similar to that of Thorn, where it just doesn't have the range. What it does have, though, is good base stability at 77. This is, of course, helped by stated rounds, which made a lot of us scratch our head for years now, wondering why the weapon's recoil felt so wrong, despite its stability being so high. But after it's fixed, though, to its recoil, and with that stability stat, Bad Juju actually feels like a laser than it ever did before. One thing to note, though, even though Bad Juju's stability stat of 77 is almost double of that of Outbreak's at 77, I do want to point out that Outbreak's recoil is still far less than Bad Juju, which has led a lot of people to question whether or not Outbreak has a hidden exotic perk like persistence. And that's exactly why we do weapon reviews. It's because there are something deeper than the numbers. It's just the weapon itself. Subjectively, some weapons just feel better than others. What I will say is that after the bug fix, Bad Juju does feel a lot better, especially in comparison to what it felt before. It feels like other lightweight pulse rifles. Now, the lightweight pulse rifle that seems to really outclass Bad Juju is really BXR. You see, Bad Juju has hip firing, and you would think having hip fire grip would make it a hip firing machine. Hell, back inside of D1, you could actually use the hip fire pretty good. Now, it's not a fault of Bad Juju, it's just that BXR just has that inherent hip fire accuracy from its design. I shoot BXR from the hip all the time, and what's so crazy is that BXR has both great hip fire accuracy from close to mid-range, and it also has crazy range with the right rolls, something which Bad Juju struggles with. So it's in this like in-between area where it's getting outclassed by a lot of different weapons. Now, if you're looking to use Bad Juju, you have to play within its strengths. It's not a weapon you can just turn your brain off and pot shot people from absurd ranges. But if you're able to position yourself properly and make sure you're actually playing within that optimal range, Bad Juju can be surprisingly strong, allowing you to pick up some very nice multi-kills, which again feeds into your super. It definitely requires a snowballing sort of play style, where your focus should be to play aggressively, proc a damage buff, and try to get as many kills as possible to build up your super. Now, I do want to preface this by saying, guys, Bad Juju is a good weapon. I know I'm kind of like pooping on it here and there, but it really is a solid weapon. No, it's not the strongest pulse rifle in the game. There are other weapons and other archetypes that make all lightweight pulse rifles struggle. But with that being said, Bad Juju is still surprisingly effective and also a lot of fun to use. I think the question I've had for all weapons going forward, and Bad Juju is included on this list, is how the decoupling from zoom is going to affect this weapon. Bungie is making some major changes to all of our weapons in the game, designating ranges for every archetype. And I'm assuming there's going to be a floor and a ceiling tied to the range stat itself. Now, Bad Juju does not have good range, but I don't really know what those parameters are. If we're only looking like a meter or 2 meter difference between Bad Juju and BXR in the future versus 7, 8, 9 meters, well, that consolidation is going to make me look at Bad Juju a little more. Granted, this is also going to change the landscape for all of our weapons to the point that the meta is going to shift majorly. Now, we haven't really covered Bad Juju in PvE for a while. I know we talked about it in our build, but String of Curses works the same in PvE, giving you that increased super energy on final blows. Its super damage buff, though, is a lot higher than what you would find in PvP. You see, in PvE, guys, it gives you a 20% damage buff for every stack, meaning at 5 stacks, you get a whopping 100% more damage. Bad Juju doesn't have any fancy ad clearing perks like Volt Shot or Incandescent, but being able to get up to double damage alongside the bonus 10% damage from being a kinetic primary, alongside the intrinsic bonus 40% damage that all exotic primaries have against red bars, this allows you to shred through ads. And keep in mind, you'll be getting a lot of super energy when ad clearing with this thing. You can run it with any super that you want, and when combined with something like Kinetic Siphon, you'll be able to spam your super a lot more than you could before. This is extremely useful for plenty of supers and exotic armor pieces, stuff like Thunder Crash on Titans, with our Yeet exotic, Star Eater Scales, with our original build, as you get more super energy from orbs anyways, Phoenix Protocol on Warlocks to spam your wells even faster. Overall, guys, this change to Bad Juju makes it more consistent that I think both PvE players and PvP players can appreciate. It really is an interesting option in both of those spectrums. Again, not as powerful as our more power creepy options out there, but it has a niche that it fills, and it fills it pretty damn well. If you feel so inclined, give it a try sometimes. It might surprise you with the amount of utility it can provide. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.